After you listen to today's podcast, here's one to add to your playlist. I'm Christian O'Connell, and I've had this thought for a while. What if you took the world's funniest and most interesting people...
Hello, I'm Ricky Gervais.
Celeste Barber. Some people call me Beyonce.
I'm Russell Brand.
...and asked them to share the stories behind their 3 most treasured items.
No doubt about it, the guitar. I think I know the same chords now as I did when I was 14.
From iHeartRadio, this is The Stuff of Legends. Add it to your playlist for free. Just search for Stuff of Legends in your podcast app.
What's up? I am Machine Gun Kelly, and look, I know Halloween is going to suck this year because there's no trick-or-treating and all that, but I've got a treat. There's a musical podcast that I made with my friends 24K Golden, Ian Dior, and Dana Dentata, and Satan. Well, Satan's not my friend, but Tommy Lee is, and Tommy Lee is playing Satan. But don't just take it from me. Tell him, Satan.
Thanks, dude. It feels great to be playing Satan on this podcast. Listen to Halloween in Hell on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or whatever you get your podcasts on.
For the week of March 26, 2020, the COVID-19 crisis remains stuck in high gear. The 2020 campaign season is now stuck in neutral, and like the rest of the country, Politicon is stuck inside. We're podcasting from Los Angeles, New York City, Nashville, and Raleigh, wondering if we're ever going to get out of quarantine, how the American economy is going to survive, and how the heck are we going to get along. Hey, I'm Clay Aiken, and we are, for the second week in a row, without our normal live audience this week, but we are still going to be putting your questions to our panel, to, I think, what each week is the best panel you're going to find on any political podcast, and this week is certainly no exception. We have some media world heavy hitters as our guests this week. Journalist, commentator, author, and anchor of the weeknight newscast for RT America, Scottie Nell Hughes, is with us. Lead anchor and producer of The Young Turks and co-founder of Justice Democrats, Cenk Uyger, is with us. Author, podcaster, expert on all things pop culture and politics, and the host of The Touré Show, Touré himself, and actor, comedian, Time Magazine contributor, and host of the Jim Norton and Sam Roberts Show on Sirius XM Radio. Jim Norton is with us this week. So some fiery, exciting, and opinionated guests this week, and it is a week where we're all still sort of, I don't want to use the word suffering, but we're learning to deal with this self-isolation, this social distancing, and this quarantine. But, you know, last week we talked about this on the podcast with our panel, and it was interesting because we were sort of in the early stages of things, and the panel really seemed to go out of their way almost last week to try to find a way to agree, a way to empathize with everyone in the country and to sort of leave politics out of it. But I gotta believe that we've potentially hit a wall on that maybe this week with the Senate having trouble passing the third phase of the stimulus package. And so, Cenk, I'll start with you.
Are we both sides is there, politics, Clay?
Is politics a part of this now?
Of course. So, first of all, I'd like to start with an objection. I was led to believe Sam Roberts would be here.
He's too big for this.
Yeah. So I don't know about this Jim Norton character. Okay. I suspect we'll have plenty of disagreements here. Look, guys, everything is politics. So whenever I hear people saying like, "Oh, let's not make this political," what are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense. Politics is where we pass laws. Laws is what determines what our shared common understanding is, morality is, our priorities are. So originally the Republicans wanted to just give a blank check to all corporations. Well, that's politics. And I don't agree with that politics. I think we should take care of the employees as well. I understand that companies are suffering. My company's suffering. And I think we should have a balanced approach. So when you say we shouldn't do politics or anyone says that, what does that mean? So who wins? Okay, then great. Let's not do any politics. Let's just do exactly what my plan is. Hey, don't make it political. I already have a plan.
But are there sides in a pandemic, Scottie?
Well, and let me just say, if I'm going to be quarantined with anybody, I can't say that I would necessarily pick this group, but I am happy to be here and talking with you guys on this. Not the ones that I would pick, but hey, this brings out an interesting group together. Thank you, Politicon. I agree with Cenk on this, that yes, it was made political this week, a lot more than last week. Last week, we were kind of getting an idea, and we were seeing, unfortunately, there were fatalities happening we didn't know. Now, you've got people going, but wait a minute, what is more long-term deadly to us? Losing an amount of people, which is a horrible prospect, but losing our economy, which is going to also result in deaths down the line. And that is where the political issue comes in right now, is going, okay, where is the balance of it? Unfortunately, I think the one thing we can all agree about is that D.C. is not giving us a solution on either party. And to pin this just on the Republicans giving a corporation bailout, then I go, well, then Democrats haven't done a good job either when they want to fund the arts and solar panels and put that as the priority. So across the board, yes, it's political. And I don't think that, and most of the time I like the fact Republicans and Democrats fighting each other. In this case, though, every minute does count in resolve to life, both of the human life, but as well as our economic life for the future. And DC is screwing it up royally every minute. And I don't see, unfortunately, them getting it together anytime soon.
You know what it is? I think when people say don't make it be political, they kind of mean the colloquial feeling of a political argument, whereas it just gets boring and it gets predictable. I don't think it has to be so far down the line where we either are going to save the economy or we're going to push old people into a pit. I think there's a balance in between where you can kind of take care of the old people and fix the economy. The problem is when people start talking about politics, it is a thing, like you said, to pass laws, and it's how our country is run. But it's also something that people use just to be right. We always blame, we're divided. It's Trump's fault. It's Obama's fault. That's our fault. We like to fight. We like to be right. We like it our way or no way, and we don't like to own up to that. That's the problem. We don't like to own up to how self-centered we are.
The both sidesism is coming out fast and furious in this conversation already. We don't have an equal fight here. We have McConnell and the Republicans and Mnuchin who came out immediately and said, let's just give multi-billion dollars to Trump to say how he's going to give it out, whatever way he wants to give it out, and we'll tell you who we gave it to in 6 months. That is not an equal sides problem. We don't have a problem in D.C. We have a Republican Party that has gone completely off the deep end in the way they conduct themselves, in the politics they want to run. It is not both sides have a problem. We have one party that is completely dysfunctional. Of course, the Democrats said no to that. And of course, what McConnell did was he proposed this on Sunday night so that the Monday papers would say, and the media, including the New York Times, including CNN, including Brian Stelter, would do the both sides' thing and say, both Democrats get in the way of Corona repair, or both sides are fighting. That is not what happened. We have an obstructionist party that is, as usual, working for the wealthy, working for the corporations. How about working for the people? But that's not what the Republican Party is about at all.
Okay, well, I can see we're going to get very far tonight.
Yeah, I was about to say, that's hilarious. I don't know what timeline you read, but that is absolutely incorrect, because you had Chuck Schumer all along, all weekend, even just hours before Sunday night, going on the Sunday morning show saying, we're close to a deal. We're working to it. And just like Nancy Pelosi did with TARP in 2008, she shows up Sunday night and realizing that I guess her beloved solar panels and her beloved slush fund for different arts organizations is not a part of the bill, and totally blows the whole thing up. I agree that there needs to be oversight, but you cannot pin this just on the Republicans. This definitely has the Democrats in it.
I can, and I will.
Cenk, let me ask you to give us, so that we can get into some of the meat of the stimulus, what should be in this stimulus package? What should have been passed?
Yeah. So, look, let me take it one thing at a time, and I will definitely answer that question. So, first of all, coming out with an outrageous proposal saying there's no oversight on a $500 billion fund, and Trump, when asked who's going to do the oversight, he said, I'll do it. That's not oversight. That's the exact opposite of oversight.
And also refused to say that he wouldn't keep it for himself and his own businesses.
Yeah, so that's preposterous. And then to turn around and say, can you believe Nancy Pelosi's holding it up? Look, I don't know that there's a person in the country who criticizes Nancy Pelosi more frequently than I do, right? But there are things that are called facts, and they are real. And so when the Republicans ask for the sky and the moon, nobody blinks. When Democrats say, hey, maybe we should also do infrastructure in this bill, including solar panels, people flip out. They're like, how dare they ask for solar panels when we were just trying to give away trillions of dollars to our beloved Republican donors? Keep it real. That's what's happening.
But didn't they work it out? Sorry to interrupt you. They worked it out, right? Didn't they they worked it out? They asked for high, they got low, they worked it out. Just to act like one side is reasonable and the other side is completely unreasonable all the time it's silly.
No, that's not silly. No, that's
true,
not.
though,
But that's not silly.
hold on,
No,
guys,
that's
hold
not
on.
silly. That's what we have now. You have to understand actual modern politics. We don't have two sides that are fighting in the same way, with the same background, with the same thesis. The Republicans' general thesis is that government doesn't work, and we should rely on the private market, and we should strangle government until we can downsize government until we can strangle it in a bathtub.
But are they
Democrats
not
go
working a little bit in the same way to some degree? I mean, the Republicans complained that Democrats were trying to put what they considered to be irrelevant pieces of irrelevant proposals into this legislation, whether it be about arts funding or solar panels, which didn't necessarily have as much to do with the coronavirus situation.
right.
But at the same time, Republicans tried to include language about the Hyde Amendment into it. So both of them are really trying to do the same things, and arguably both parties are using the same playbook, are they not?
So
both sides your commitment to both sides of them is crazy.
Let's be clear. So first of all, I hear what you're saying, Clay, and I'm glad that you mentioned the fact that the Republicans tried to use this as a way of ending abortion, which is grotesque and sick.
Actually, it was Nancy Pelosi accurately who put it in first.
To, hey, maybe we should build energy infrastructure in the country, which could create jobs, which is totally related to the stimulus bill. And if you think that's silly, then you don't know anything. That's exactly what you do.
People are dying. Talk to me about road construction on another day when people are dying every day.
Scottie Nell, you want to talk about people dying? Well, you and Trump and Glenn Beck and all these guys and Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is pushing, well, maybe we should just let some older people die. That's called a death panel. And now you guys are
that's called socialism, something that you push, and what Italy has
understand what kind of monsters you are. Let's just be clear about that. In terms of how to get to a compromise, which actually they did, so Republicans say, I want everything for corporations and nothing for the workers. Democrats say, we want things for the workers. And hey, lo and behold, because you put enough public pressure to embarrass the loathsome, corrupt Republicans, yes, they wound up giving something for the workers. So how does that work? Look, if you're going to have to furlough employees, and a lot of people have to furlough employees, that's super real, providing 100% unemployment insurance for a short period of time or a set period of time is very logical in a crisis like this. If you give a blank check to a corporation, look, I run my company. You give me a blank check, and that's not fair to everyone at the company. And I actually give a damn. If you give it to a Boeing CEO, he's going to take most of the check for himself. He's not going to care about the employees. He's going to pay him anyway.
Listen, I don't agree. I don't agree with the bailout of it.
Well, this whole idea of just letting everybody talk whenever they wanted to, that sounded wonderful when we started. I don't know. Let me try to focus it. Now, we'll get to you, Scottie, but I want to ask Touré real quick to get in here. Are there not people who are left out of this, even in the Democrats' plan? Because the Democrats have specifically said, that we're not going to give it to corporations. We want to send a check to workers and Americans. However, if you didn't work in 2018, or I'm sorry, if you did work in 2018 and made over the threshold, but then you lost your job in 2019 and haven't had a job since, you're not going to qualify for this stimulus check. Is that not right, Touré?
I mean, as far as I'm reading, we're talking about $1,000 to $2,000 for people with two kids who live in New York or LA. That's a pat on the back. That does nothing for us.
I'm not going to disagree with you there, but aren't there still a huge chunk of people who, because they made, I'm thinking of people who work in this industry, TV producers in New York might make $80,000 a year. That's nothing in New York, but it precludes them from being able to get this stimulus check at all, especially if they made it in 2018, lost their job in 2019, and have to use their 2018 taxes. So is there not an argument, Scottie, you can take this if you want to, is there not an argument that neither party was actually remembering or figuring out a way to get to every person who needed the help?
Well, exactly. And just like I don't agree with having a blanket minimum wage from LA to New York and everything in between, I think it's just more of a PR campaign, to be honest with you, to say we're going to send a check. I think if they really wanted to do both help the American worker as well as help the economy continue to try to beat, I think a payroll tax reduction would have been the better way to go this route. But I understand people right now. I agree in extending.
But what about people who don't have a job? You can't payroll tax reduce if you lost your job.
But And that's what I'm saying. This is a blanket everybody, whether you have a job or not, you're going to get this check. I would rather put that money in an unemployment for those that are getting unemployment, boost theirs so they'll be able to live off it for a while. But I do want to point this out. I talk about the corporations. I agree. There needs to be some oversight, but we talk about it just like it's going to the CEOs. There are 145,000 employees that work for Boeing, and that's everybody from your part-time to your daily wage. Marriott, 176,000. United, 96,000. We can say these big corporations because they're big and bad, and we don't like them. And those CEOs, I hate them. However, they're also the Ronald Reagan trickle-down economics also works within their companies, and that's where that money would go to help cover.
Oh my God! Come on,
Ronald Reagan.
Let me get Jim in here, though.
That ideology was destroyed years ago. No, it doesn't work. And we know that it doesn't work. It doesn't work on a macro level. It doesn't work on a micro level. Why not just give the money to the people and so they can spend it rather than give it to corporations so they can have stock buybacks and fire 10% of the workers? Why would we give our tax dollars to a corporation and then have them fire 10 to 20% of their workforce? How does that help the average people?
They're already fired right now. They're all laid off. It will give them the ability to hire them back on. What you're doing is a short-term solution. What's that whole teach a man, give a man a fish, he eats for a day, teach him to fish? That's what you're doing. You're teaching these corporations to hire the people back in until we can get over this slump and the economy gets back and breathing again.
A blank check doesn't teach anybody anything.
That's
Jim, do you think there are businesses where people will not make the effort?
I'm sorry?
It's okay, yeah. Do you think there are businesses where business owners will not make the effort to file for this stimulus, may have to lay their employees off? Maybe not big corporations, maybe not mom and pop shops where they have a relationship with their employees, but these mid-sized businesses where you've got 500 or so employees. Do you think there are going to be companies where the owner may just say, you know what, it's too much of a headache to file for this stimulus. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to lay my people off during this crisis, and when it's all over, I'll hire new people. But there's a big chunk of folks who are going to be left out because of that. Is there?
You'd be a pretty stupid business owner to not try to file for stimulus money. So yeah, I don't see many of them doing that. I mean, if they're that dumb as a business owner, their business is probably not doing well for other reasons. I mean, no, I don't see a lot of businesses going, we don't want the money. We'd rather get rid of the people. People would rather have their stores open, and I think everybody would rather have stores open, have businesses running, and have people getting paid.
Right, but we've shut those down, right? And a lot of states have put in place shelter in place, or whatever you want to call it, stay at home orders. Most businesses that are not essential have been shut down. How's that going to affect the economy? Let me switch and ask another question that was sent in. Carla from Phoenix asked if Easter is a realistic date.
Probably not, but it's fun to have some hope. It's
clearly
fun. They can just change it. It's nice just to go, well, hopefully by Easter. We all know it's probably not going to be good by Easter, but I like to have a little bit of good news, because you can't click on anything without it being, we're all going to drop dead. Half of America is going to die. Maybe Easter, maybe not. I think we all know that date's probably going to change.
I mean, good news in and of itself is interesting, but because I'm scared out of my mind when I think about the future. But Trump is not just sort of dealing in reality by suggesting we're going to have some big, beautiful Easter. I mean, the churches being filled would lead to millions of Americans being dead within a month. I mean, it's completely insane. And the problem is not just giving a good news to people. There are millions of people who listen to him, who actually take the things that he says seriously. This is extraordinarily dangerous.
Yeah. I was only telling you how I interpreted it. I don't speak for other people. That's just how I took it.
Yeah, no, look, I actually want to agree with Jim and Touré. Let's see if I could pull that off. So I hear what Jim's saying. It's, as Dr. Fauci said, it's aspirational, right? And saying, look, I'd love to get there by Easter, but we're going to have to see the science behind it. Is the more responsible way of saying it and still have, give people a little bit of hope. But of course, unfortunately, that's not how Trump does it. They asked him, did you base it on science? What did you base the date on? And he said, it's a beautiful time. It's a beautiful timeline. That's why I picked it. Don't do that. Don't do that. Well, then you look like a clown and we don't know what we're doing, etc. But Touré's right. What I'm most worried about is people take that as meaning, no, I'm not. Don't wait till Easter. Trump is telling me it's okay now. I'm going to go out. And now you got all the right-wing hosts telling everybody, hey, look, we got to sacrifice the old, like the good old Aztecs. Let's throw them into the pit and let's move on with our lives. well, that's going to create waves of the disease, which actually sets the economy back and gets people killed. So he's got to be careful with his rhetoric, especially because he runs a cult. And everything that he says, people believe. They believe him over scientists and doctors, which is the height of insanity. But they actually do. They do. So he's got to be really careful, and he's the least careful guy in America.
I think that's
Scottie, go ahead and
I don't think that's probably totally accurate. There might be some dopes that like him, but I don't think that everybody who likes Trump is just a moron who believes. See, the problem with people who hate Trump, I get why people who hate Trump hate him, but people who hate Trump don't understand why people like him. And I think that's why he won. That's why Trump is the president, because
why
people
who
hated him so much did
why
not
do they like
understand.
him?
I think that he represented something. He represented something that they felt was outside the system. And people who were tired of being scolded and told that everything they think is wrong and everything they think is inappropriate and that they're a racist because they laugh at a certain or whatever it is down the line. And I think he represented somebody who could at least say something stupid and not be cowed by criticism. I mean, again, right or wrong, but I don't think it's what people pinned on his supporters. They're all a bunch of white supremacists. It's just nonsense. It could have just boiled down to one issue. It could have just been, hey, they're pro-life. They're pro-life and they'll never vote for a pro-choice candidate. So Trump was the guy. It could have been just one issue, and that's the price we pay for having a two-party system. You're going to pick A or you're going to pick B. There's nothing in between.
Scottie, I want to give you a chance to get in, though, on this April and Easter situation. What are your thoughts on whether or not we're being responsible, or the president's being responsible, or the media's being responsible, or whoever, about setting a timeline on when this might be over?
Well, and it goes back to Jim's point. I mean, we elected President Obama on a very successful standard of hope and change. People want hope, especially in their sorrow moments in time of despair, which I think we can all agree in our country is facing right now, time of despair. Do I think churches are going to be filled with people? Absolutely not. On Easter, regardless of what the president says, as long as people are still dying, are being diagnosed as being sick with this virus, they're not going to go quickly and jump into a big crowded space or crowded room. And I guarantee that's probably not going to happen. But what it is trying to encourage people to don't just close up in your houses alone. Don't spend your money. Find ways to still continue to socialize safely, whether it be via the internet, whether it be spending your money. Don't completely just shut down, because that will have horrible long-term effects both on your mental state as well as on the financial state of this country.
Scottie, can I ask you how you think Ronald Reagan might have handled this differently than Trump is?
I don't even know where to start with that one.
Ronald Reagan couldn't get elected in the modern GOP, so I'm not even sure where that is going to go.
Yeah, he did amnesty. They'd run him out of town.
But generally, Scottie, do you believe the president is handling this well, or do you think that there are other Republican or Democrat presidents, any other president who might have done things differently or better?
Well, that's the thing. Unfortunately, this is where not having any government experience on how the bureaucracy works is hurt Trump, because he thinks just if he says it, it happens. And that's not how it works. Unfortunately, I don't see anybody out right now. And some people might be screaming about Cuomo, how wonderful he is. Yeah, but he also didn't order ventilators 2 years ago and refurbish his supplies in New York. They're all horrible at handling this. Then again, none of us expected this. For what he's doing, you look at his actual public approval rating as high as it can be. And guess what? People trust him more right now than they do the media. And that speaks volumes.
Yeah, actually,
well, I mean, that speaks. Hold on.
That's what we're here for.
But that speaks to decades of right wing and GOP attack on the media, which is completely unfair, completely untrue, has destroyed part of the fabric of what this country is all about. So I mean, like, you know, to compare that people are believing him more than the media when they've been told by Trump and others that the media is lying. He constantly says you're lying and says nothing. Says nothing. I mean, like the fake news bullshit meme that he keeps saying over and over is complete bullshit. It's completely fake. The biggest liar is Trump, over and over and over. I mean, like, how does he keep telling us that he was quick to bar Chinese people from coming into this country months ago because he saw that this was going to be a pandemic? He loves to say this, but then 3 weeks ago he was saying it was a hoax, and he did nothing but bar Chinese people from coming here to protect us from this pandemic. The core of his support, the core of what he's doing right now is about racism. And like it's about this return to white supremacy, and to ignore that is to ignore the core of what his appeal to his supporters was all about.
To imply that the people who don't believe the press, because I disbelieve the press and I despise the press long before we ever thought Trump was going to run for president. So that has nothing to do with Trump. My feelings about the press and the fact that they're editorializing and they're masking it as journalism, and they're going under the guise of impartial journalism when they're really editorializing, and that's what they do. And if they were honest about it, I'd be okay with it. But they're not honest about it. And I've despised the media for a long time. So it's not just Trump talking to a bunch of dummies. Gee whiz, he said it. I've despised the media for a long time. Yeah. I think their bias is very obvious. And again, I don't mind bias if you're truthful about it. Andy Green said many years ago, the media is transparently liberal, and it's okay. He was liberal. He wasn't insulting the media when he said that.
But there's an entire right.
I got it. No. Hold on. First of all, Jim is right. People hate the media. They're right to hate the media. And Jim is also right that Trump partly won because people hate the establishment and the elites. And they thought, look, I don't know how Trump's going to do, but I get a sense that this guy's going to throw a brick through their window. And that's true. And he has thrown a brick through all of our windows. Congrats. And I can't stand the media. I think the media is ridiculously biased. But I don't agree with Jim that they're biased in a liberal direction. I think that's hilarious. I think that they're biased in an establishment direction. They love the elites. They think everyone who's rich and powerful is awesome. They hate the right wing, but they also hate the left wing. They despise the left wing. They hate the left wing and progressives way more than they hate the right wing or Trump or anyone who's anti-establishment on the right. And so that's true. Now, on the other hand, if you're saying that there's not a significant group of racist Trump supporters, you're nuts. Of course there are. Sure. I don't know that they're the majority, but do they exist? Do they love when Trump says the Latinos are criminals and rapists? Yeah, of course they love that. Do they love it when he bashes Muslims? Oh my God, that is the majority. No question, a majority of supporters love that. Let alone what he says about women, black people, et cetera, et cetera. So, and does Trump lie more than the media? Yes, of course he does. He's a pathological liar. Both of those things can be true at the same time. The media can be despicable and pro-elite, and Trump could be an idiot monster as well, let alone the supporters who have lost their minds. Jim, if you can't see that they're listening to him without questioning him at all, you're not paying attention. These guys are total cold.
So in line with this discussion about the media and whether Trump himself came to the table quickly enough with the sounding the alarm for coronavirus when it was in China back in January, February, I hear a lot about this on most of the cable networks saying, or at least several of the cable networks saying that Donald Trump was not ahead of the curve on this. But Touré, where was the media? If this was a tragedy that was impending upon the United States of America back in January and February, is the media not in part at fault themselves, even if it is the channels that are on the left? Are they not at fault a little themselves for not sounding the alarm also? I mean, Donald Trump got involved and really stepped up to the plate only because the media pressured him to. Would you agree with that? And if so, where were they in February?
You're blaming media for not noticing before government and national and global problem. I don't know. I would think that it would be government's issue, government's problem, government's
I'm not here. I'm not taking any blame off of the president myself. I own my bias.
I mean, that would be the beginning.
Jim,
and the disbandment of the office that would deal with pandemics because Obama had it, that's sort of part of where the problem truly begins. And just even the notion of not believing the media, I would be curious to talk to Jim, because he got behind that idea tonight, who his media sources are, because generally people say those sort of things and they act as if Fox, Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, and these sort of people are not media. They are absolutely media. And it is consistently a right-wing meme to say you can't trust the media. But this comes from, Bill O'Reilly and Rush Limbaugh and these Sean Hannity sort of people as a business tool, saying you can't trust others, you can only trust us. And this is not something generally that objective media, Washington Post, New York Times, CNN says. It's certainly not something that left-wing media like MSNBC says you can't trust the other side, you can't trust the New York Times. You can only trust us. This is what the right-wing media does as a business tool. And it worked when they were when an insurgent but now when Fox is the largest cable, quote unquote, news network there is, for them to continue to say you can't trust media becomes an extremely destructive part of the American landscape.
See, the reason, and this is my take on this, is the reason I look at Sean Hannity and I Rush Limbaugh. I don't listen to. I know what he stands for, but I don't think I've ever heard his show. I know what these guys are. Fox News, very conservative slant. They're 9 times out of 10 going to take the Republican side. They're going to take the conservative view. If I watch something on Fox, I know exactly what I'm watching and exactly the tack they're going to take and exactly the angle they're going to take. The problem with CNN, MSNBC, ABC, all the other ones is all of them are going to take the other angle. So to me, that the reason that Fox is considered the biggest is just because anybody with those viewpoints is going to go to that one place. Whereas MSNBC, CBS, ABC, NBC, they all have to fight it out with people who believe the other way. So I don't trust the press because I've seen the way they edit. They've been caught editing things. They've been caught editing audio at NBC. And they wouldn't name the person who actually chopped the audio.
Let me stop you because I worked there and I know how incredibly hard everybody there. I also worked at CNN. I know how incredibly hard everyone works to make sure that things that they say are accurate and honest, and how deeply they care about their integrity, and to just sort of throw out like somebody made a mistake in a report of 20 years ago to then cast aspersions on the integrity of everybody at NBC or anybody at CNN. Like, it's absurd. It's absurd. And what Fox is
say that you don't even know what I'm talking about, and you're automatically assuming that it was an innocent mistake. And I believe what you're saying about those people. But if you spoke to Hannity or if you spoke to somebody at Fox, they would say the same thing. We have integrity. We care. Everyone.
But
in
we
that
know those
position
people.
is gonna say that.
We know. We also know people who work at Fox. I mean, that is clearly performance art. They are not. But they are not trying to be honest or accurate with what is actually going on in the world. That is performance art.
And let me come at it.
It's simply not true. That's the
Do
arrogance.
you not believe Touré that they may
arrogance.
believe those things that they're saying? I mean, Touré, is it not possible that they believe the things they're saying? If you've worked at CNN, you've worked at MSNBC, all five of us have been on all of these networks and know people who work at them. Is it not possible that they may believe the things that they're saying, even though to even myself and to people on the left, they sound a little bit outlandish? Could they not honestly agree with those things?
Do I think that Sean Hannity actually believes that he's telling us the truth? Do I think that Bill O'Reilly believed that he was actually telling us the truth? No, I don't believe that. He may have deluded himself into that through years of being that performance artist. Like, if you play a character long enough, then you believe that worldview is real. But no, that is performance art. And those people understand that what they're doing is lying to the audience and creating fear and telling them a story to keep them coming back.
You're telling yourself that. You're telling yourself that. And the intellectual arrogance that says, I know what the truth is, and all of these people are just stupid liars and pretend.
I didn't say they were stupid. I didn't say they were stupid.
Let me come at it from a progressive perspective, because I think it's a really interesting one. And I actually think, to some degree, now I'll flip around. I was agreeing with everybody. Now I'll disagree with everyone. Look, Jim, there's different people on Fox News. Sean Hannity is a robot. If Hillary Clinton had won the election and she had canceled the pandemic office, he would have lost his mind over it. He'd be calling for impeachment. He's a talking point robot and an incredible liar and incredibly biased.
Jake, before you go any further, I want to get Jim's response to that first, because I want to know if Jim, do you agree? Do you believe that Sean Hannity would have called Hillary Clinton out for some of the same things that he has forgiven Donald Trump for?
I do. And just like I think, because again, I think they are always going to take a conservative angle because they think they're conservatives. And just like I think that Don Lemon or Anderson Cooper, guys I like watching, I enjoy those guys, but I always know that they're going to go after Trump, and they're going to take up for not that they wouldn't go after somebody who's liberal, but I do think that the bias is very obvious. It's just more obvious, and for some reason, people are more comfortable with mentioning the bias that they see on Fox.
Yeah. Okay, Cenk, I want you to finish. I just wanted to make sure that let's let Cenk finish. Let's let Cenk finish because I interrupted him. But I wanted to make sure that we stopped there because you made a point that I wanted to make sure we put an underline under.
So on the other hand, I think Tucker Carlson might be honest. I think that what he says in calling it the Chinese virus is loathsome. How he says immigrants are dirty is loathsome, but he might genuinely be that loathsome on those issues. On the other hand, he's great on being anti-war. He's actually now trying to hold corporations accountable, which is unprecedented in the right wing. So there's some chance that he actually believes the things that he believes, and he is an intellectual about it, even though I think that some of the things he says is flat out racist. Now, that's okay. We can have an honest disagreement about that. But I really want to disagree with Touré and agree with Jim on how biased the rest of the media is. So you think Anderson Cooper doesn't have a point of view? Of course he does. I disagree with him that it's a liberal point of view. No, those people love power. They were hired and promoted because they're not going to rock the boat. Their job is to have a bias in favor of the status quo. So they'll go out there and they'll tell you, look, it's a great example. Bill de Blasio is a progressive that they don't like. All of the media. MSNBC hates progressives more than anyone does. But Cuomo is establishment 101, and they love him. So de Blasio and Cuomo will say the same exact thing. They're like, de Blasio, clown, doesn't know what he's doing. Oh, my God, the beloved Cuomo. I think he should be president already. So if you can't see the overwhelming bias that CNN and MSNBC, and yes, definitely the New York Times, Washington Post, NPR have in favor of the establishment, mainly establishment Democrats, but also establishment Republicans, then you're being blinded to it. And in fact, Fox is now, they used to say fair and balanced, which is absurd. At least now they admit they're conservatives, which makes me feel way better. Okay, yeah, then be a conservative. There's nothing wrong with that. As opposed to CNN and New York Times pretending that they're unbiased. What that does is it privileges their own position. Our position must be the correct one, and everyone else is biased. Oh, screw off. That's what people can't stand.
Scottie, you hop in here.
Well, I do want to hop in, having worked both at Fox and CNN and been at MSNBC, like all of you. A couple things that Jim mentioned. He said he enjoys watching CNN. I think that actually is very accurate. Enjoy. At some point, we flipped from watching our news to get information to an entertainment, sort of like WWE wrestling is what we look for. And the more entertaining that, the more it was, the more people pulled in. I blame a lot of this on the 2016, on what I call the death panels, where you literally clawed your way out of them during the election season. And that became entertaining, and people watched that, and that just drove them to more entertainment factors. But in that case in point, though, you look in the coverage, I'm going to bring it back to what we're dealing with in the present day of the coronavirus, and you look at China and calling it from China and the Chinese virus. You do have this very hypocrisy where CNN and MSNBC are screaming at Trump for calling it that, yet there is just literally tape after tape after tape previously of them calling that as well. And yet they're calling it, the hypocrisy is so abundant on this case. And as regards to Fox, you have to understand there has been a major shift this last year with who they've put on their board and the changes going on. So you do have people like Tucker Carlson finding himself at odds with Sean Hannity, but then you have Trish Reagan literally pulled off air because of what she said by the board of Fox, and Kennedy. So there is a way right now that they are making sure that the voices are very uniform along the same narrative. And you have a great example of this, Jim Acosta. Him and President Trump were best friends on the campaign trail. Go find it out. They both flirted with each other. They had this bromance going on in the very beginning. Then Jim would started to make these little public temper tantrums, and he got all this praise. And you could just see it escalate even more. And now you have an all-out war between Jim Acosta and Donald Trump when it comes to the press.
Scottie, do you think that
entertainment value?
I knew they were going to kill him. The police ain't FBI.
This is Fight Night, a new podcast from iHeartRadio. This is the story about two guys from opposite sides of the street. A hustler blamed for robbing the most dangerous gangsters in the country.
This is like issuing a death warrant for me for something that I don't even know anything about.
And the cop who tried to save his life.
They thought he had robbed the deadliest man in this country. Guys who would not hesitate to blow your head off.
In 1970, Muhammad Ali triumphantly returned to the ring. At the Hustlers party that followed, gangsters from around the country were robbed of $1 million. This story from Atlanta, Georgia, has been reported for 50 years. But now, for the first time, you're going to hear what really happened from the people who lived it. Listen and follow Fight Night on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
What's up? I am Machine Gun Kelly, and look, I know Halloween is going to suck this year because there's no trick-or-treating and all that, but I've got a treat. There's a musical podcast that I made with my friends 24K Golden, Ian Dior, and Dana Dentata, and Satan. Well, Satan's not my friend, but Tommy Lee is, and Tommy Lee is playing Satan. But don't just take it from me. Tell him, Satan.
Thanks, dude. It feels great to be playing Satan on this podcast. This Halloween, listen to Halloween in Hell on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or whatever you get your podcasts on. Soundtracks available on Spotify or wherever you stream your music. But I mean, like, everybody's got a podcast these days. But what would I know? I'm Satan, for God's sakes. Don't even get me started.
Scottie, do you think that Cenk has a point, though? I mean, you seem to... I'm trying to find the thread here, and if there's a commonality between what you're saying and what he's saying, that there is there's a bias towards the status quo, whether it be on Fox or on MSNBC or on CNN at all. Is there an agreement there from you with him?
Absolutely, and I'll say it from supposedly coming from right of center. You put Paul Ryan on the Fox board. You can't get more established than Paul Ryan on the Republican Party to bring it, and you've seen a change.
Well, Cenk, let me ask you this then: why have the I'll use the term far left, but why have the left and the right not teamed up and united together on this one issue? Because that's something that happens in every single one of these podcast episodes we've done. There always seems to be a thread where the folks who are on the farthest on the left and the farthest on the right all are very upset with the status quo, the establishment, the elite, or whatnot. But there seems to be very little urge to unite together to fight against that because other views are so different. Why can't people get together on that one?
So there's two parts of this answer. One is that there's things on both sides. On the left, it's called cancel culture, but right wing has their own version of cancel culture. They have their own version of political correctness. And so if I agree with Tucker Carlson on being anti-war, there'll be a whole heap of people on the left going, how dare you? Do you know what he says about Latinos? That's it. You must agree with him on Latinos. But no, I don't. I'm a human being. I have my own opinions. And sometimes I agree with them and sometimes I don't. So at the Young Turks, we do it. We have right-wingers on. We have conversations with them. If they're doing BS talking points, I hate them. I kick them off. I never have them back on. If you were having an honest conversation with John Ziegler, I've had it 1,000 times. With Steve Hilton from Fox News, I had a wonderful conversation. If you're coming at it from an honest perspective, well, then we can have that conversation. But the main point is the second one, Clay. We actually can have that from time to time, but it doesn't really matter because the mainstream media is so overwhelming and so oppressive that they never let those points of view out. Like, do you know that over 90% of the country, over 90% of Republicans and over 90% of Democrats agree that corporate money corrupts politics, and they want to get it out. They hate it. They think it's the heart of corruption. But New York Times will tell you, how dare you? Those are beloved politicians. You can't call them corrupt. You're all monsters. And then they never highlight that the right wing and the left wing agree. All they do is they highlight our differences. Why? Because they want to split us apart, and they want to have corporate rule over us. Now, Touré, before you get upset, it's not that there's like a memo at the New York Times, and every random reporter at the New York Times isn't doing that as part of some cabal. It's groupthink. The groupthink is the status quo is awesome. Yeah. Everyone who's outside the status quo is a radical. And conflict is great. It sells papers. It gets your ratings. Oh, the right wing and the left wing agreeing that we're all corrupt. Ugh, that hurts my business model. It's not interesting. Forget it. So they have the largest megaphone, Clay. So at the Young Turks, we try to fight back, but we got, honestly, we got rolled in this election. the mainstream media decided that Joe Biden was going to win and Bernie Sanders was going to lose. And they gave him hundreds of millions of dollars in free advertising, basically. And they pummeled Bernie Sanders. And actually, Scottie's right. During the general election, CNN loved Donald Trump. They gave him billions of dollars in free media. That helped him win. Then they turn around and decide conflict is good, and then they start bashing him. I don't mind the bashing. They're correct about that. But they should have also said that during the campaign. No, they cared about their ratings. So it's the mainstream media, honestly, that is oppressing all of us with their beloved corporate status quo. And they will not get the truth out that we do agree on a lot of things, but we just can't publicize it.
I also think one reason that we don't have that, if I could, one reason is I think it's on us more. And the press is fairly repulsive, but we don't like to acknowledge the fact that we're arrogant and our identities are all wrapped up in being correct, where our identity is wrapped up in drawing a line in the sand and standing behind it. And everything that happens, we don't even care about the emotion of it. It's just we pile it up for the next argument. Everything that happens in the news, if it's an immigrant that commits a crime, if it's a black on white crime, if it's a white on black crime, we pile it up and we use it the next time we get on a show to win the next argument. So there's so much arrogance based in being right. That's a big reason that the far left and the far right don't get together, because nobody wants to sit down and listen. All we want to do is watch somebody else's mouth move until it's our turn to talk. And that's an ugly quality, but that's at the base of what our problem really is. It's fun to blame Trump or to blame Obama, but that's easy and it's not accurate. It's not accurate because Trump and Obama aren't in most places where we have these talks, and we still degenerate into the same thing. So I would prefer if people were just honest and we just owned who we are, and we're all kind of selfish. And the bottom line is our identity is wrapped up in being right. And that is the base of the problem. That is the guts of the problem.
I do think something has changed this cycle, and I will put the blame on Trump on this. It used to be about ratings. That's why they did the Trump rallies. But what we've seen recently, now it's more about protecting the agenda of the network, where whether or not you agree with what President Trump, if he's saying is lying or it's truthful, when you have the networks with this coronavirus going and having their own commentary rather than airing straightforward the press conferences that we're getting 12 million viewers daytime, unprecedented. And they're saying, nope, we're going to go give our own commentary. We think that's more important. It shows that it's not necessarily more about being informative. It's now about, or even ratings. It's about protecting the agenda of whatever they're trying to push at that moment. And that's scary. We're seeing coronavirus. I'm scared about future subjects.
I love those press conferences. It's my favorite news show. Trump's insane daily briefings. You never know what lie he's going to tell. You never know who he's going to attack in the audience out of the media. And I love watching Dr. Binks and Dr. Fauci elegantly contradict him without him realizing that they've done it. So that's always fun. I mean, like, I watch it and I love it like a guilty pleasure, but I do understand very deeply the media's need, the serious media's need to not show as all of it, because they want to show, if the president comes out, whoever he is, whether you agree or disagree with him, you do have to show him talking for a certain amount. But the lies, the self-congratulation, this is terrible for the nation, right? His open dishonesty is terrible for the nation. So we would be better off as a nation with him not talking and just having the head of the CDC coming out each day and saying, here's what's really going on, rather than having to deal with his lies.
Hey, Touré, he is the president of the United States. You do understand that. Regardless of whether he is the president of the United States, whether you like him personally or what he says. And why don't you let the people decide whether he's telling the truth or not? Why do you think that
truth is not for people to decide? Truth is truth is a fixed thing. So it's not for each person to decide for themselves. There are certainly things that we can have opinions on and we can have disagreements on our opinions, but there are truthful things. And it's not for media to just be a window to just show the president spoke, look at him. No, it is valuable and important for the media. It is it's not about opinion. Is it valuable and important for media to say, this is untrue. The president said this, he's lying, and that's untrue. I mean, there are, but I mean, let me jump back for 1 second. What Cenk said about status quo is absolutely right. There's definitely a status quo bias in media. That is definitely something that happens. In terms of the groupthink that absolutely happens, without a doubt, the both sidesism that really also comes from left-wing media because they don't want to be critiqued. They don't want to be seen as not objective. So they don't want to say, this is what I believe. So they say, both sides. That is part of the biggest problem with understanding in this country, the both sidesism, and it drives me absolutely insane.
But the idea of both sidesism is arrogant. It's saying, I'm standing in a morally superior position and I see the truth as it is. But if you're looking at things from both sides, you don't get it. And there's it's not telling the
truth. It's not telling the truth. It's not telling the truth. It's saying the person crossing the street shouldn't have been crossing the street, and also they got hit by a car. No, one person did an action to another person. And if we don't describe accurately what happened, then the people are misunderstanding the reality.
But you're not just giving the facts. No. It's not just the facts. It's about giving the opinion with the facts. I don't mind just the facts coming out. Guy crossed the street, got hit by a car. That's correct. But the problem is when the editorializing comes in to giving those facts. I don't have an issue with the facts.
So Jim, I want to change the subject real quick. I want to change the subject real quick.
No.
So we can make this the last thing because I have a really important question I want to ask. Go ahead, Cenk.
Okay, so look, Jim, I despise their bias. So they'll say Bernie Sanders is unelectable based on nothing. But they state it as fact. And it's loathsome and it's grating on every nerve I have. And so I'm sure
it affects the electorate.
But Touré is right that there is such a thing as truth. There either is a vaccine or there isn't a vaccine. Either a combination of drugs works or it doesn't work. It's either contagious or it's not contagious. And Trump doesn't give a damn about the truth. He's a showman. He's a carnival barker. So he just keeps like, oh, this is tremendous. I know more about this than anyone else. No, you don't. You're an idiot. So let the scientists talk. Because in that case,
as much as I would absolutely love to beat the hell out of this dead horse more and more, because we could talk about this forever and probably not find any agreement. I do have a question from Tara in Boulder, Colorado, and she wants to know, I'll ask you, Jim, where the hell is Joe Biden?
Where is Joe Biden?
Fantastic question.
He hasn't looked good. And again, he's a guy, I think he's a good man. I just think the fact that all three candidates are over 70 and he is showing it the most. I think he just doesn't look good. He doesn't sound good. And I know Trump trips on his words and I know that, but Biden doesn't sound good. And for a while, I'm like, is he literally doing this to lull Trump to sleep and then to massacre him in a debate? And then I'm watching him talk about the coronavirus and I'm watching him answer questions. I just don't think he's with it like he should be with it. I think he was
I totally agree with Jim. I have not agreed with anything you said more than that. I am so disappointed that this is where we are as a Democratic Party, that he is he seems asleep. He seems like grandpa who's happy but needs a nap. His sentences wander off. He contradicts himself within his sentences worse than John Kerry ever did. I constantly facepalm. Twice with Nicole Wallace, he said, Trump is not a good president, and then immediately said, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said that. What do you mean? This is why we've nominated you, to say stuff like that. I thought we were supposed to have somebody who was tough and rhetorically punch him in the face in a debate. Now we have this mealy-mouthed guy who's like, I'm nice, I'm decent, I'm nice, I'm soft, I'm decent. That's not what we were looking for. We could have had a real fighter like Elizabeth Warren. We could have had a fighter like Bernie Sanders. Is this the time to fight right now in the middle of the
pandemic, though, Touré? Is it the time? Is he making a strategic decision to not fight because right now that's not what people want to see? They want to see solutions.
He was making the same decision 3 weeks ago before we knew we had a gigantic problem. Already then we were like, how come we haven't seen much of Joe? When he took the lead after the first Super Tuesday, and it was like, well, but how come he barely did any media? And we hear all these excuses from people who love Joe. He's getting over a stutter. He's still sad about Bo. He's still sad about the people who died in his family 5 decades ago. And those are tragic things. And that has defined his life. And I'm very sorry that those things happened to him. But I
I
don't hear an effective communicator in this man. He seems to be one of the weakest communicators that the Democratic Party has nominated in 30 years, and I am horrified at what might happen in this general election.
That said, it sounds as if though he probably has been nominated. Cenk, is it time for Democrats to get on board regardless?
Look, I couldn't agree with Touré more. What have we done? I said it on election night 1,000 times, and I said it before that in 2016. I said to Democrats, brace for impact, because I thought Trump was going to win, and unfortunately I was right. In the beginning of this process, I thought any of the Democratic candidates could beat Trump. He's deeply unpopular, but including Joe Biden. But now that I've seen Joe Biden for a year, or as much as they'll let us see him, I'm so worried. I think he's the weakest candidate we have. The Democratic establishment, in their infinite corruption, has again picked a terrible establishment, non-fighter candidate. They've made the same exact mistake that they made in 2016. And I'm afraid to say brace for impact.
How happy does this make you, Scottie, to hear this?
But make no mistake, this is what the plan has been from the very beginning. The reason why we're not hearing from Joe Biden right now is we don't need to hear from him. He's already got it locked up. And that's what's very sad for the Bernie Sanders supporters. I'm real interested to see when, once again, it comes to fruition that Bernie never had a chance. I don't know if we're going to get another WikiLeaks out that's going to show that all along the Democrats were going to make sure that Bernie Sanders did not get it. Whether we're even talking about the impeachment proceedings that made sure that Bernie Sanders couldn't be in Iowa and couldn't be out campaigning. Everything was set up against him to never have a chance. And it's going to be real interesting to see how the Democrats, but you're right. The more this goes, Trump's got it. But I do have to find it's going to be the vice president. Biden's already said he doesn't want this ticket. He doesn't want this to be his full-time, for the rest of his life. It's his VP candidate, which is sad. Hey, put Michelle Obama on the candidate. There's actually a chance the Democrats.
Biden actually said that. Biden said
Elizabeth Warren.
Biden said you.
And
Sorry, Biden said you.
No, this is important. If the Democratic Party tries to pull some sleazy maneuver, which is incredibly possible, that they go to the convention because they all knew that Biden has problems.
There's going to be a convention?
Get rid of Sanders, and then maybe they replace him at the convention. And you know who they'd replace him with? Cuomo. Hear me now, quote me later. And when that happens, we're going to explode. We're not going to take that. Hell no. Hell no. You don't get to just pick the guy that you want because he's going to be corrupt on behalf of the rest of the Democratic Party. So the VP pick should be Elizabeth Warren. And if there's any issues with Biden, it should be Sanders or Warren, period.
I'll tell you something. Joe
Biden said you should pick a candidate that because the vice president, you should pick someone who you may want as president. He literally alluded to the fact that he might not make it through a term, which, I mean, a terrible thing to say.
No, that's absurd. Michelle Obama barely wanted Barack to run, right? She does not want to be in politics at all. But Joe Biden would not be in this position without black people, from Barack Obama to Jim Clyburn to the black voters of the South and the Midwest. And if he does not take this opportunity to reward a black person, be it Kamala Harris, be it Val Demings, be it Stacey Abrams, some black person with that job after black people elevated him to where he is now, then he has completely forgotten who put him in this position.
Before we go on to our quick lightning round of listener questions, sorry, I'm used to having a live audience. Before we go on to those questions, let me just go do a real quick round robin. We've gotten a VP pick from Scottie. You're calling Michelle Obama is what you think it should be. Cenk, you believe that it should be Elizabeth Warren.
Yes, she's the only choice.
Jim, pick a VP for Vice President Biden.
If I had my choice, I would say Tulsi. I would love to see Tulsi Gabbard in it.
And Touré?
Kamala Harris, Stacey Abrams, somewhere in that realm. I would be happy with Elizabeth Warren as well.
Okay. I want to do a quick round robin. Real quick, short answers. I'm going to give you a question to each of you from a listener, and want to make sure we get in several listener questions from this. Scottie, we'll start with you. Chris from Tacoma asks, has this crisis helped or hurt President Trump's chances?
It's helped. It's unified everybody. It's unified his base that were possibly disenfranchised. It's helped them all to unify and say that he's a leader. Whether you agree with it or not, they're all ready to go to the polls and motivated to go to the polls in November.
Okay, Cenk, Sue Rue on Twitter says, do you feel the media has a responsibility to cover Trump's daily briefings, or do they have a responsibility to help stop the spread of misinformation?
The answer is both. Yeah, I agree with Scottie. He's the president. You have to cover what the president says.
Yeah.
On the other hand, immediately thereafter, they should point out every single thing he said wrong. They should have fact checkers on it ASAP, and they should tell people, tune in afterwards so we can clarify for you all the mistakes that Donald Trump made, because we don't want you to die.
Jim Dealey 52046, beautiful name that this person has from Instagram, asks, who are we supposed to believe, Trump or the doctors telling us to stay home?
Well, I mean, that's a ridiculous question. I mean, that's like saying, who should we believe about, Neil Armstrong or Trump when it comes to space? I mean, the doctors, obviously. That's just a person who wants to ask a question that you have to say don't listen to Trump to. Who would you rather sleep with, a porn star or Trump? The porn star. Trump loses.
Well, he chose that himself, didn't he? Touré, Carla from Phoenix asks, why does it seem like Governor Cuomo is now the leader of the Democratic Party?
Because he's out every day saying intelligent things and providing a persona that makes us feel calm and makes us feel that somebody is actually at the wheel of this thing doing the right thing, and Joe Biden is in the candidate protection program.
Scottie Iro Bazari from Instagram says, why would people support moderates for president after a moderate loss to Trump?
Well, the only reason why they wouldn't, because everybody obviously were very polarized, but why they should is you would hope it would be sort of like a Tulsi Gabbard, per se. They could bring in both sides and say, listen, you're not going to agree with me 100%, but at least you agree with me 80%. I heard that once from a president before. I think it was Ronald Reagan. May I say the name again?
You've mentioned him once or twice. Cenk, I specifically did not give you that question because I knew that you might go for broke on it. So
But maybe that's what our country needs to heal after we get through, Donald Trump and his wrecking ball, like Miley Cyrus destroying everything. Maybe when we're putting the country back together in order to be unified in a perfect world, we could have a more moderate that could see both sides.
Touré, I'm sorry, Cenk, is China our enemy? Kathy from San Francisco.
No. So, look, the world is filled with nuance. So we do trade with China, and there are things that we have in conflict with China. Just painting them as the enemy is both preposterous and unhelpful, counterproductive. The enemy in what, right? And by the way, on this topic, calling it the Chinese virus is deeply, deeply racist. My kids are Chinese. My wife is Chinese. And already my son came home saying, hey, kids are saying that Chinese people eat bats, and that's why we have the disease. Fox News started that, and it's atrocious.
I'm sorry. He came home from where? How he came home from where? How is he not at home with you all day? What's going on?
Touré Joshua from New York, so not far from you, wants to know, has the stock market turned the corner?
No, I don't think so. Not yet. I think that the market responded upward to the deal, and as they start to see the actual details of the deal, I just saw somebody, I don't know if this is true, but I saw somebody say the $1,200 that we're going to get is going to be taxed when we start to see the economy go back down, because Easter is not going to be the end of this. Then no, it's going to go back down.
Okay, and our last question is actually for Chip Chipperson, Jim, if he's there at all. COVID Buster on Twitter, a very current handle, wants to know Chip Chipperson's take on Joe Biden over the last few weeks.
He sounds great.
Okay. Well, okay. Thank you, Chip. Okay. For our last segment, every week we do what we're now calling, it's changed names because so has the world. We're calling Beat the Quarantine. We're going to ask all of our guests to give us ways that we can entertain or enlighten ourselves, maybe from a social distance, by recommending a project of their own and a project of someone else's. So something that's yours that you want us to check out while we're stuck inside, and something that you have found has entertained you or enlightened you as you've been stuck inside. I have taken all of these suggestions throughout the week, and they have really been great. So you got a lot to live up to. Touré, we'll start with you.
Oh my God, so much going on out there. Jay Electronica's album for hip hop fans is one of the greatest things that has come out in over a decade. Dive into that. Look at Little Dicky's show Dave on FX. It is incredibly hysterical. It's like a white Atlanta. Look at Schitt's Creek, which is about to come to an end. One of the most hysterical, intelligent shows on television. And if you're like me, scared out of your mind, watch Contagion, Steven Soderbergh's amazing film from about 10 years ago about a similar thing that it won't freak you out because the real world is as freaky. And is this where we also say something of ours that we're working on? So I'm working on a 6-hour podcast about Prince that will take you deep into his life and really understand deeply who he was, talking to a lot of people who worked with him in his life, from the revolution, from stylists, from engineers, all these sort of people.
And you
That's
wrote
come out in early June.
You wrote the book on Prince, literally back in not too many years ago, right? I Would Die for You.
Yes, I wrote a book about Prince called I Would Die for You. And this, Clay, this goes so much deeper. I thought I knew almost everything about him. I learned so much about him doing this project. So I can't wait for people to hear this,
What's
this
the podcast
epic
called?
podcast. It's going to be called Who Was Prince?
Okay, excellent. Jim, what you got?
What have I been doing? Basically, to pass the time, I've been sitting in my apartment eating like a fat pig. That's what I've been doing. Shoving food in my fat face and treating grocery stores like nightclubs. I go
That's
in,
a wonderful
I browse,
suggestion.
I lurk, I'm creepy. I've been despicable and completely unmoving since this thing started. As far as what I've been watching, just nonsense on Netflix. I haven't really gotten into anything new, so I really don't have anything excellent to recommend. There's a very depressing documentary on Netflix about child abuse, the trial of Gabriel something. So it's a great insight into the way the system failed this kid in LA. It's really sad. But I really don't have anything great to recommend, unfortunately.
Well, your show, you could recommend your own
like
show.
Like I said, I don't have anything great to recommend. But if you have nothing else to do in the morning, Jim Norton and Sam Roberts were on Sirius XM, and they're giving it away for free for 3 months, the whole channel. So people who are stuck in the house with nothing to do, who might not be working, you can listen for free.
And you've got your own special on Netflix also.
Oh, yeah, The Degenerate Season 2 and Mouthful of Shame, both on Netflix if you want to see me do stand-up.
There you go. Netflix is going to run out of material throughout this quarantine, I think. We thought they had way too much, but I think we're all going to have a chance to get through all of it.
Yeah.
Scottie, what about you?
Okay, well, I'm first going to say how I'm surviving. It's this great, and I'm going to say this to Cenk. I agree with you that there are some great things that come out of China, including Zoom, which is how I'm surviving. I had a 5 o'clock cocktail hour with my girlfriends yesterday. My children are learning via Zoom right now with their teachers, and they're in public schools. So even public schools are utilizing it. So I think it's really been wonderful to have this technology in my home office that really our lives can continue to go on, not as conveniently, but I'm really grateful for this type of program to be developed. So Zoom, if you haven't been on there, let me know. We'll have a 5 o'clock cocktail hour, and we can talk all you want.
Scottie's inviting everyone to her Zoom cocktail hour.
I am. Perfect. I'm actually throwing my daughter's 12th birthday party on Saturday on Zoom because you can't have a real one.
We're all coming.
They're all coming. It's really cheap too. That's the best part. It's free. I'm going to continue to promote. You can News Views. It's every day at 3 and 5 p.m. Eastern. We've been covering the coronavirus. My first story was on the 24th of January when we first had the diagnosis in LA of it landing, and we cover it every single day. And so download the portable.tv app out of your Apple or Android store, and you can catch it for free. And guess what? No government's following you when you do that. So it's a wonderful thing. They might follow you other ways, but at least in this case, you can watch the show without having to worry about anybody with, acronyms following you.
Portable.tv.
Portable.tv.
Okay. And Jake?
So obviously I do the Young Turks, get all your news there. We do a live show 6 o'clock Eastern. You can check out every single day. So we do kick Trump's ass on a daily basis, but we also kick the establishment's ass on a daily basis. Can't stand Democratic leadership. We're honest. We're populist. We're homo progressives. So tyt.com is our website, as in the Young Turks, tyt.com/live at 6 o'clock Eastern. You could also catch a lot of our material, including the live show, on YouTube. So youtube.com/tyt.
You've got a lot of pickup too. You're on Pluto now, I see.
Oh, yeah,
you're everywhere.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we're everywhere. Pluto, Roku, Zumo, Comcast Xfinity, Facebook.
YouTube TV has it now, I think.
What's that?
YouTube TV has it now too.
TV,
Yeah,
we have a channel on there as well. Twitch. So turn on any device you have, and you'll get the Young Turks. Okay.
Yes.
TYT or Young Turks, seriously, in almost any device, and you'll get our show. And in terms of just my guilty pleasures while doing this, normally I actually don't get to watch TV because I'm working nonstop. But since we were quarantined, I got to watch Better Call Saul, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and there's a show called something like The Ottomans on Netflix. And that's about how the Ottoman Empire captured Constantinople. And actually the admiral of the Ottoman Navy that did that was my ancestor. So it's pretty badass.
Wow.
Getting to find out about
Is that something you knew before? Is that something you knew before you started watching this?
Yeah, I knew that. But then somebody told me just actually really recently, they're like, dude, there's a whole Netflix series on your grandpa capturing, by the way, obviously not my actual grandfather, so a long, long time ago. But yes, an ancestor on my mom's side.
You look good for your age.
But yeah, there's the story about how they conquered the unconquerable city, which is what Young Turks is going to do next to Washington.
Excellent. Well, I just started watching. I feel a little bad because, Jim, you talked about a documentary on Netflix that had to do with child abuse. So now I feel like maybe Netflix just does too much on child abuse. But there is a documentary, it's a little old, called Tell Me Who I Am, about two twins. One lost his memory at 18, and his identical twin brother filled his memory with far more positive things than what the reality was. And I'll leave it at there. It is chilling. And the documentary, you watch him finally tell his brother the truth. And it's chilling, and I recommend it highly. And I also recommend that people come back next week and check out this show, and to submit your questions. We are going to still be in quarantine next week here at How the Heck Are We Going to Get Along? But you can submit your questions online on Twitter or on Instagram at Politicon, or by email podcast@Politicon, and we'll get your questions into our panel next week. This week, I don't know how next week we'll be able to top them because you guys were feisty and excellent. Scottie Nell Hughes, thank you so much. Cenk Uyger, Touré, and Jim Norton, thank you guys so much. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you here next week.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Thank you all
Take care,
so much.
everybody.
After you listen to today's podcast, here's one to add to your playlist. I'm Christian O'Connell, and I've had this thought for a while. What if you took the world's funniest and most interesting people...
Hello, I'm Ricky Gervais.
Celeste Barber. Some people call me Beyonce.
I'm Russell Brand.
...and asked them to share the stories behind their three most treasured items.
No doubt about it, the guitar. I think I know the same chords now as I did when I was 14.
From iHeartRadio, this is The Stuff of Legends. Add it to your playlist for free. Just search for Stuff of Legends in your podcast app.
On September 17th, 2009, 24-year-old Mitrice Richardson disappeared without a trace in the woods near Malibu, California, and was never seen alive again. I'm Katherine Townsend, host of the podcast Hell and Gone. We're going to try to find out what really happened to Mitrice Richardson. School of Humans and iHeartRadio present Hell and Gone Season 3. Listen to Hell and Gone on the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.